Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Turning Base podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Redeker, and today, unfortunately, Brian Redeker could not make it. He's had a lot of fun in commercial aviation, and he was just unable to make it, unfortunately. I told him this is why you need to go to private aviation. But today, we do have a special guest with us. We have Pete Oleszczuk, who is a real estate developer. Wow, if I can talk. Pete, how you doing today?
All right, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Technical issues aside, here we are. We're going to do this and we're going to have some fun today.
Sounds like a plan. I'm ready.
Awesome. All right. So, Pete, you're not a pilot, and you're not really involved in aviation from the business side, but you are a real estate developer. So I wanted to have you on the show and talk about your experience and talk about aviation. So can you start off a little bit, talk about how you utilize aviation in real estate developing?
Yeah. So it actually was one where pretty early on in my career, once when we started to do real estate development, and I worked for a national retailer, and we were traveling all over the place. And one of the things that became pretty apparent that one, I wanted to be present and represent myself at different municipalities, planning commissions, council meetings, county meetings, whatever those look like. But when you're kind of having to travel 4 to 8 hours on the road, you realize pretty quick you're not going to be home. And
Yeah.
especially kind of young in my career, it wasn't that big of a deal. But as I started to get older and looking to have kids and all that type of stuff, it became pretty apparent that I there needed to be a balance, or else it wasn't going to be long lasting. And so that's where
Right.
aviation kind of came into play. And it started out as charter services locally. And then as we kind of went into it, it became all right, well, a lot of times in charter, depending, especially on smaller aircraft, because of, you talk about small places, you talk about little, what feel like mon pa airports kind of scattered across the state and other states. They usually don't take the Lears or some of the other business jets that you
Sure.
kind of know about. And so we were traveling around in a 414, a Cessna 414, which it was like a late 70s, early 80s vintage. And it
Yeah.
was, I mean, it really built some great character for me. But as you're kind of going through, you're like, yeah, I feel like maybe I could do this. Obviously there's different incentives and things like that to get into aviation.
Yeah.
Um, but having something where kind of how it's being maintained, how it's being taken care of, kind of the different bones and kind of the fundamentals of it, said, you know what, let's get into owning our own stuff. But it really came about by by just wanting to be home at night, and the option of being able to travel, obviously, as you know, long distances, um,
Yeah.
and being able to get home. And that's for one reason why I never became a pilot, because for me it's I would leave the office, and say it's 3 o'clock. You got to get to the plane, and then you got to go, and you're flying for an hour,
Sure.
hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on where I'm going. If I were to be a pilot, I need to be fresh when I get on the ground, and I need to be prepared, and I need to be able to kind of prepare myself for whatever it is that I can be facing. And
Yeah.
so comfort, reliability, and really consistency was what I was going for. And being a pilot and having somebody I knew that wanted to kind of land and get home was also a massive bonus. But yeah, it really was out of necessity to being home at night, and that's kind of where all the journey started. So
Yeah. Being home at night is critically important. I know I had a job once where I traveled all over Michigan, and it was fine, even early on being married. But once kids started coming along, if you're 2, 3 hours away and something's not going well, and you're like, I'm going to be here for another hour, and then I still have a 2 to 3 hour drive home. That's a late night, and time again, I was like, I can't do this. Like I just cannot do this anymore.
yeah, and it became well, you're either going to really love your job and it's going to be able to balance the personal professional side of things,
Yeah.
or this isn't going to work. And so yeah, I can And kids, you're right. I mean, it just becomes the time is fleeting. So how do you best utilize the time that we have, but still get the work done? So
Yes. Yeah, because that's the important thing. Like we have jobs. We have to make money. We gotta put food on the table, right? And sometimes you get unexpected expenses, like you have to put in a new HVAC unit. You gotta pay for those things.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, that stuff.
yeah, that stuff comes up and you're like, oh, yeah, so you got to have the job. You just can't have fun all day and just play with the kids. As fun as that would be,
It would be
you,
nice, but yeah.
it would be nice, but you do have to make the money to go do these things. So, you kind of touched on this a little bit. If you, what would be like a day if you couldn't fly? Like, how long were the days when you before aviation helped you out?
Oh man, well, there were times where like I was developing up in the northern parts of the UP, and obviously there's no easy way to get there.
No, there is
So I
not.
mean, you would be talking about, a full days of travel,
Yeah,
visit something that might only be a couple hours. I mean, really, for most of the purposes was if I were visiting a project, visiting a site, visiting a municipality, like, it would be a 2-hour meeting, but it would be 16 hours of travel to accomplish that. So,
yeah,
um, you know, did that in the beginning. But at the same point in time, especially as I grew in my career, that my time became more and more valuable, not only from a standpoint of being home,
hmm
but also just the ability to not be present in my office or being available in any other capacity that, when you're spending 4 to 8 hours in travel for, you know, a couple hours situations, whatever that might be, it became such an inefficient aspect of my operations that obviously it needed to change. So, and we needed to evolve
yeah,
outside of the traditional mode of travel. So,
sure. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. In actually last week's podcast, we were talking about how private aviation is more. It's yes, they're beautiful airplanes, right? And what you're currently in the Diamond, that's a absolutely gorgeous airplane. But it's more than just that. It's a tool to get your
mm,
job done. And if you're driving for 4 or 5 hours, you're driving, right? So you're not accomplishing anything else. Versus if you're in a plane, especially if you're not the one flying, it becomes your office. It
mhm.
becomes a conference room. You can continue to work while you're traveling, which is huge.
Well, yeah, and for me, you can center yourself. I mean, you talk about a lot of and for me, because experiences, municipal meetings, you never know what you're going to go into. I mean, you can be the
Yeah.
savior or you can be the devil. I mean, just depending on the different aspects. So, you know, when you're in a car, obviously there's a different dynamic. There's a different
Oh, yeah.
stress, there's a different attention, there's just the different factors that are influencing you. And I will be honest, when you've been flying for what I've been in a plane for 13, 14 years. I mean, to be fair, you can have a heck of a lot of different experiences in an aircraft too that are outside of your control.
Oh,
That can
yes.
make either the journey there or the journey home very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you're able to center yourself and you're able to kind of focus in on what the objective is. Once you get there, you're able to process what just happened if you're leaving, and you don't have the responsibility of, oh, I've got to get this thing off the ground and I've got to, get this thing,
Yeah.
on the ground type of a deal. And so it gave me, uh, you know, in particular, as you mentioned, it's a tool, but it was a tool that allowed me to have a competitive edge on how I operate, where I could show up
Oh,
the
yeah.
best way I wanted to show up when I got to where I needed to be, regardless of distance, which was, it's been huge for my ability to do a lot in a short period of time.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about being able to center yourself because when I'm a student pilot, right? So I'm starting to fly. It takes actually a lot out of you. At least especially right now as I'm trying to learn to fly. I don't have um all the autopilots and all the everything to help me at this point. So it's all me right now.
Mhm.
It takes a lot out of you. You spend an hour, hour and a half up in the air doing maneuvers and everything. By the time you get back on the ground, it actually does take a lot out of you. So to take that stress away, even, to have somebody else worry about flying, getting off the ground, flying, mapping everything out, and then getting it on the ground, right? And that's a big stress right there. So you can really focus on what you need to do so you're at your best.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
especially with air traffic nowadays. I mean, I kind of, unfortunately, with the Diamond, I can sit up there right next to the pilot. I've got my
Yeah.
headphones on. We're talking, we're
Yeah.
interacting. But you start looking at that map and the GPS, and I mean, between the amount of communication you have to have between the towers or the different locations and kind of the approaches and all that type of stuff. Pair that with the attention you have to the GPS system, not only for inclement weather that, as I mean, is unpredictable, especially when you kind of get
Very
to
much
this
so.
time of year, along with just the communication where you've always got to be paying attention, because you never know when they're going to call your tail number, and then you've got to be available and ready to respond with
Yeah.
whatever it is. Um, yeah, it's just there's a lot happening. So even on autopilot, for that matter. So
Yeah, you're still doing a lot. A couple months ago, I was actually in Florida and got a chance to go up in a brand new Cirrus. And wow, flying in Southern Florida, the amount of other air traffic was unbelievable, and everything. It was crazy. I was not used to so much radio traffic, and you really had to pay attention to when they would call you. And at one point, we were coming back, and the tower actually called out the airplane that was sitting about to take off, and just says, white, I forget what it was. Can you identify yourself? What are you trying to do? Because like he even lost track of all the aircraft, and he was like, where'd you come from, and what are you trying to do? Because you're about to take on to the active. And we were like, we could look down and I could see it because we were just about to the field. And I was like, wow, there's just so much air traffic that even ATC is trying their best. They're starting to lose track of aircraft,
oh, yeah.
and so they had to like recenter themselves and recall out to aircraft to make sure they had everybody accounted for. And I was like, wow, training down here is like way more intense. I'm glad I'm not doing 100% of this right now here.
Yeah, right. Fair
Yeah.
enough, man.
Yeah. So when you land at an airport after a long day, what kind of separates an average FBO per se versus one that you're like, hey, if I'm coming back to this area, I'm definitely gonna go here or there. What kind of makes some of that difference between where you're gonna go?
Well, I can tell you, man, it kind of runs the gamut. I mean, we've gone to some of the local municipal FBOs where, usually there's nobody there and you got to kind of figure it out, pressing the code to get through the
Right?
door and all that, just to be able to use the restroom or, whatever it is that you have to do. And then we've gone, I mean, you talk about the big airports. So, I mean, you talk about the ones out of Chicago, the executive airport out of Detroit,
Yeah.
flown into Marathon. You've got different places, kind of all over the place, and it runs the gamut. But I would tell you probably the biggest thing I look for is the customer service. Like, usually if you're landing in an airport, unless there's some sort of stipulations, you're paying a fee to land at that FBO.
Right.
Not only that, you're
Right.
buying fuel, you're doing this, you're doing that. And most of the time it's Av Flight or Signature. I mean, those are kind of your two big ones that you're kind of dealing with at that point. And, for me, it shouldn't be my pilots that are having to put the chocks on. It shouldn't be my pilots that are having to try to figure out where the heck we're supposed to park. There
Yeah.
should be a responsiveness there where, it should
I
be
get that.
tended to. There should be the line guys that are out there or whoever it is, the line folks out there that are kind of, you know, navigating traffic for us. And then, if anything, when you get there, it's like they at least recognize the fact that you were supposed to land. So, a lot of times it's like, well, we had to, this has all been booked. You can see the screen right here. It says this plane's coming in at this time. And like they
Right?
act surprised like you're there. If there's, you're just like, well, if there's anything that's not a surprise, it's when a plane's coming in and you've had to announce it for the past 4 hours based off of our flight logs or whatever it is that we've had to report. um, so I will say the one thing that I look for is the customer service from the moment we're taxiing towards the FBO,
Mm, okay. Yeah.
how we're received. Because I mean, and in small planes like what we have between our HondaJet and then with our Diamond, our DA, I mean, you're interacting with the pilot. It's really any sort of small plane outside of going kind of to a Gulfstream and kind of that a larger
Sure.
aircraft. You're participating in the event with the pilots because you hear them chatter and talk. And
Oh,
so when
yeah.
they're having to call over the radio, like, where do we go? Where do we park? They're having to look at the GPS system on the plane saying, like, okay, I think we go here. Um, communication, visibility, and then just tending to the aircraft, and it's the little things that, candidly, on a lot of these FBOs, especially where you're paying hundreds of dollars to navigate, it's
Yeah.
be present, be available, and know what the hell you're doing. And because you get a lot of these, and again, I understand. I'm in the world of construction. I'm in the world of property management. I'm in the world of trying to navigate the human aspect, but the training on some of these FBOs with some of the team members is just, especially with these assets. I mean, these are obviously they're not cheap.
No, no,
And
no.
just that a little bit more of attention to detail um, is going to be important. And I don't know if that's something that kind of comes from AvFlight or Signature as kind of a massive part of their operation,
Sure.
but being more intentional with customer service is everything. I mean, obviously, you don't have many choices, so maybe that's the way they look at it, where it's like, well, where else are they going to go when they land? Um,
Well, that's completely true, right? It's not like, well, am I going to go? You land, you're like, am I going to go there or there? There's only one place to go, so it's
and
like,
that's
well, here we go.
and he hath control the fuel, do most things.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
but
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
so I would say that aspect.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I grew up around aviation and flying with friends and family to different places. I can remember there was one time we flew to an airport and we landed, and it was my friend's plane, and we walked up to the FBO and we're like, okay, we landed. Is there a landing fee? They're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, I'm here to pay it, right? Because I'm here. I'm going to do something. They actually could not figure out what to charge him for the landing fee. And they didn't actually know how to do it. I don't think he ever paid the landing fee because they could not figure out. And I was like, kind of flabbergasted. I'm like, wait, your plane's coming and going all the time, and yet you actually can't figure out how to charge them for your
Oh, yeah.
landing fee. You have one, but you actually don't even know how to charge it. Like that was kind of bizarre. And I know another time we landed somewhere and they stated they had fuel service up to a certain time of day. And it was before that. It was like a half hour, 45 minutes before that time. And he needed to get fuel. The guy left. The fuel truck driver left. And there was nobody else on site. And he's like, well, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Like, I need fuel. And the guy left. I can't. He's like, so he was like, we were quickly trying to find like another airport close by that had fuel and was open. We needed fuel. And the guy just said, yeah, well, I'm just going to leave early. And that was it.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it because you're also not
No,
going to want that guy that's like, yeah, I've seen it done before. Does it this end or this end or where do you feel? It's like, no, I mean, again, it's that whole thing of it, anything when it comes to aircraft between the insurance. I mean, it becomes it's not a free asset, and you want
no.
people that know what they're doing, but you also
Yeah.
hit it. You know, I've flown into Mackinac. Mackinac is it's a beautiful spot to fly into on the island, but you never know if there's going to be somebody actually working there. And you can radio in a ton of times. And, it's kind of one of those small airports where it's kind of like, well, thank God we've landed here before. And at least we know the drill if nobody's here.
Right.
But I mean, you talk about
Right.
kind of a cool spot where you kind of want, especially with what you're hearing with kind of all the ferry news, where if you could charter a
Right.
small plane or kind of that experience to kind of get to the island, you want the experience to be like, welcome to this place, and let us help you navigate what it looks like to get from the FBO to the actual hotels, which, oh, by the way, you don't want to walk. You want to get on a horse
It's
and
too far.
buggy
Yeah.
that will be
You're getting
here
on a horse and
in
buggy.
a little while. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And Mackinac is an amazing place. I know my grandpa, he would love to take my grandma up there, and they would just sometimes fly up there just for dinner and fly back. Right. They would just like, oh, it's a nice day. So I have dinner
oh,
on the
flying
island,
along
and they just
and flying
fly up.
along the coast. Heck yeah. I mean, it's beautiful
I love
flying over
that.
the straits. And yeah, I mean, again, we're in such a beautiful spot where I will tell you
Yeah, we
that
are.
it's also, the experiences I've had where you can be flying back. I was flying back from, I think it was around Petoskey. Was it Petoskey? Somewhere up in that neck of the woods. And we were coming back and it was a beautiful, I mean, it was one of those crystal clear nights that'll probably never
Yeah.
happen in my existence. But we were flying in our old King Air, And you're looking out and you can see storms over the middle of Wisconsin just thundering away and hammering, and you can see all the way across the Lake Huron. And it was just, and you can see all points in
Amazing.
between on, all the water that's kind of reflecting with the moon, and you're just like, you just remember those moments. And I would never have been able to experience that had I not been in private aviation the way I am. But you just look at it just in just awe of where we kind of
Yeah.
earth it, the earth ball, um, and what it is. So, anyways,
Yeah, there is something
straight
there.
aside.
I always tell people like there is something about flying along the coast, especially here in Michigan. And you're up around 4,000 feet, 5,000 feet, wherever you're at, and you're just looking out over Lake Michigan, which is vast. And then you can just look out and over Michigan, and you look at the sand dunes, and it is just something amazing to witness and to I was pretty lucky that I've been flying since I was very young, so I almost kinda got used to it.
Mhm.
But every time I go up, it's amazing to see some of those sights that you don't get that with commercial aviation because 'cause you're just so high up. Yeah, you could see some storm clouds and cool stuff like that, but, like, there is something when you're only a couple thousand feet up, that view is just amazing.
Yeah. It's an intimate moment, no
Noth
question.
Yeah, yeah, it is, it is. So what's something an FBO has done that really, like, stood out to you? And we talked about customer service. What is something like you have seen that you're just like, "Holy cow, these guys get it."
I will tell you it's the small things. For me, it's obviously you get some FBOs that'll roll a rug out for you. You'll get those that are kind of standing at the door once it opens up just to say hi, just to say good afternoon, just to kind of make that connection. If I've landed in a spot a few times, they'll remember and say, good luck on the journey, or, look, thank you for being back here. It's because they know it. I mean, obviously it's job security for them, air traffic, right? So
Oh, yeah.
it's for me, you're not looking for this opulent type of, event, but
Mhm.
just that it's the little things in the interactions where, it's so often lost in our society that, the little
Oh,
things
yeah.
do actually matter. And just because you're flying in on a plane doesn't mean the hi, the hello, the, hope you have a great day. Thanks for being here. Those things resonate. And it's oftentimes it doesn't really happen. Um, Usually it's the, "Yeah, your rental car is coming" type of a deal, or, "Do you need fuel with that?" And it's,
Mm,
for me, it's
mhm.
it's just kind of that next step. And I will say that from what I've experienced, and some of the best flying in the FBO has been unrelated to business,
Mm,
has been flying into
okay.
Marathon, Florida, which, they've got a nice spot right there for it's just private aviation anyways. But the
Okay, yeah.
experience is they greet you when you get off the plane, usually, and I love it because I'm on vacation, so I can. But they usually have a golf cart that's got it. It's almost like a drink cart that you'd see on a golf course. It's like, hey, what would you like? This type of an experience, and it's like,
Awesome.
okay, my vacation can begin. But
Yes.
it's just those,
Vacation
it's
start
those,
now.
yeah. It's like I've landed, my flip flops are on, and I'm ready to drink whatever you're serving. Um, but it's just those types of things where it's, again, it's not, you don't need the incredibly brand new FBO. You don't need, they're cool, but really it's the customer experience with the humans. Um,
Mhm.
that I like to see most. And again, it's the little things that really just make me appreciate coming to land. And because there's also that kind of that benefit of, hey, I made it and I'm not dead. Cool. Thanks. It's good to see you too. It's been a great trip. I look forward to being here. I hope your local community members don't hate me. And if they do, I hope you're
Right?
really nice to me when I get back because I'm ready to get the hell out of here. So
Yeah, right?
But, it's, and from my pilot standpoint, they just want the help. As I kind of was saying, the line guy, the line folks, you know, they need to know what they're doing. And you get some of these you get some of the situations, and especially with these taxiways and kind of where the parking is. I mean, private aviation, in particular, like up in Traverse City or something like that, is getting very popular. And this time of year, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
insane. It's one of the busiest FBOs in the country this time of year. You know, parking an aircraft isn't like backing in a car. And so
No,
letting
it's
there
not.
being some intentionality of like, okay, what type of aircraft do they have? What are their abilities? And just that type of small knowledge to be like, yeah, they can
Oh yeah.
fit here or they have to go over here. And oh, by the way, we have to park you further away. Let's send a cart, like a golf cart or a courtesy, anything, so that if you have luggage, if you've got, your family, if you've got multiple team members and you've got stuff for a presentation, like you're not having to walk across 100-degree tarmac to actually get to the door, to then have to get buzzed in, to then have to say, hi, I'm with these folks. And do you have my rental car available? And it's like, who are
Hmm.
you again? It's like, I've been
Yeah.
here 30 times. Like, you don't know who I am yet. Um,
Right.
and so I guess to answer your question and full circle, it's the little things for me that mean the
Okay.
most. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, at the end of the day, business is business, but we're people at the end of the day, and people do business with people, and I think sometimes that can get missed in all sorts of businesses, and I think that's important. I think that's really important is those little things, and yeah, we are people, and sometimes we've had a long day. Maybe it was a rough flight through some weather, and you are just happy you're back on the ground alive.
yeah,
So
there have been those flights for sure.
yeah, yeah. So those things happen, and yeah, it's just it's those little things. So one thing we didn't talk about in the little things, and this could almost be a big thing at the same time, is like, what about courtesy cars? Because I hear this a lot from both sides of saying, yes, we love courtesy cars, or we would like to have a courtesy car, but like I've talked to some FBOs and they're just like, the financial, like the car isn't the cost, it's the liability and the insurance and all the other things. And they're just like, I don't know if I'm going to take that on because I don't know if it's really worth the offset. So I've heard both sides of this. I wanted your take on this whole courtesy car topic.
Well, and I think, we've had conversations, I think, in regards to this before. And a lot of times what limits, I mean, our state is peppered with little airports. I mean,
But
everywhere,
yeah, it
little
is.
municipal airports all over the place. But for the most part, you can't utilize them because one, you can't get a rental service. So you're not going to land there if you got to go anyplace, or you've got to somehow coordinate getting picked up, which then kind of negates the trip to get there and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, it's understanding obviously liability. I exist in the world when you own aircraft, like you understand there's liability, period. I mean, we exist in a world where you're at fault for the most part until you can prove otherwise. Um, but I've driven in the courtesy car that's been the old Crown Vic, like windows don't go down. Oh, by the AC went out years ago, and it's 90 degrees in the Iron Range of Minnesota, and you're like, I think, I just put me back in the plane, or I'll walk, type of a deal. Um, but I think they're essential, especially for these little FBOs that one really aren't manned. That there aren't a lot of things happening there.
Hmm.
The most important thing is having some traffic, and especially for the local businesses around these places, it's you kind of talk about, your family. It's like, yeah, I want to go up here and I'll go and do this and do that. Well, if Mackinac didn't have the means of the horse and buggy to get there, you're probably not landing there, right? And a
Probably
lot of
not.
times there's not a taxi service. There's none of these things. So I think there inherently always will be liability. I think you have to have the right process to be able to defer that. Obviously a sign out form or whatever that looks like, it's kind of the honor system to a certain extent, especially if it's not a manned, FBO for what it is. But I think for a lot of small communities in these small municipal airports, it's essential, at least as far as I'm concerned, because you know, for me, I could be landing 15 minutes closer, 20
Hmm.
minutes closer, but I can't because I don't have a way to get from the airport to my meeting. And so then I have to tack on another 20, 30, 40 minutes to my journey to
Yeah.
land at the airport that actually can get a rental service. And then it's a compounding effect. And then of course I'm, at that point in time, then I'm traveling an hour and 20 minutes anyways, just to get from the airport to my meeting.
Mm,
So then
yeah.
it's just kind of, it starts to kind of look at, as we said, time value money of where are we at? And, if a courtesy car has got some level of fee in regards to a landing fee or something like that, but it's something that's available to used, or most of them are handled through donation.
Hmm.
Um, it's all depending on how they're funded, and a lot of times, obviously, a county funds it in some
Yeah.
capacity. I mean,
Right.
um, and obviously, I know not every county is equal when it comes to their funding and their abilities,
Yeah, this is true.
but for the most part, they all have fleet vehicles from either their staff or whatever that looks like, and it's just either investing in one that's new so that you're not worried about it, or take one that's lightly used, um, and just simply dedicate it to that type of operation. Um, it's been I've been to enough FBOs where there's some of them where I'm surprised they have a courtesy car, but then once you get in it, you're like, well, they just couldn't get rid of this thing any other way. And then I've been to the other ones where they've got them labeled, they've got a marked courtesy car, and it's nothing fancy, but it gets the job done.
Gets the job done.
Um, and in the end, it's I need to get from point A to point B, and you're either a part of my solution or you're a part of my problem, which is why I can't utilize your services.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good
and
point.
so I would love to see more FBOs get that type of consideration where it's a courtesy car, and finding out the best practice of which to be able to have it, because I would prefer to use the little airports, because
Hmm.
if it can give me 15, 20 minutes of my time from getting from point A to point B there, that,
It's
that's a
worth it
compounding effect, man. I mean, that has value. Um,
for sure.
but yeah, unfortunately, I mean, private aviation is now getting dictated by regional airports and kind of the clout
Hmm.
they have and kind of the resources they require between rentals and all that other type of stuff that's affiliated. And it usually costs more money because it's then manned by one of the national brand FBOs, where
Yeah.
it's a different experience altogether, right? I mean,
Yep.
you land in a
So true.
municipal airport, you kind of when you're leaving, you kind of say, all right, this is my fuel capacity. This is what we're going to have. Likely they don't have fuel service. So you're like, okay, we're going to go heavy. No, we're going to burn it off and we're going to have more than enough to come back, type of a deal. Um, but you can't utilize it because it only gets you to that destination, but then you can't go to your end destination because there's no ride. So,
Yeah, and that's a problem. I mean, that's really really a problem. So let's have some fun things to talk about
okay,
for a moment.
I'm ready, man. Let's do this.
Let's let's talk about airplanes. How did you pick the Diamond? How do you pick the airplane of you do you still have the Honda Jet?
Yeah, I still have the Honda Jets.
Okay, you still because I know a lot, like you were talking about trying to sell it. So you have the Honda Jet. You also have the Diamond DA62.
Yeah.
Both beautiful airplanes. Of course, almost all airplanes are beautiful, really.
I've seen some
And
ugly ones, but yes,
there are
agreed.
they do exist.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. But how do you pick the airplane?
You know,
What do you look for?
the DA is kind of a weird plane altogether, right? I mean, it's kind of a different looking plane anyways,
Yeah.
with the tail and all that. It's just odd, which makes it kind of cool and kind of exotic for what it
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
But really, the DA was one where I think we were in the process of selling one of our Lears, and knew that, in particular, Lear's not great for kind of the short jaunts where you're just looking to be in the
Sure.
air for a half hour. It's great for the long
Yeah.
distance journeys, but we were
Yeah.
looking for kind of an uber efficient kind of hour and a half range maximum type of an aircraft. And I've had a King Air, cool workhorse, but kind of loud.
Yep.
Not, it's a different atmosphere altogether. Um,
Hmm.
and we found there was this DA62 down. I want to say it was just on the wherever SpaceX is at. There's that town that's right down in Texas, kind of right on the Mexico Texas
Oh,
border there.
yeah.
So we flew down there and we're like, all right, we got to see this thing. We got to check it out. Um, and so we hopped in it. And I mean, the best way to kind of identify the DA is it's like a nice sedan. It's got that level of comfort. It's got like the nice capacity in the back where, you can put the foam boards and all that type of stuff if you need to display things.
Hmm.
Um, and it's comfortable. I mean, for being something that's got such a weird looking fuselage,
Right.
the thing is just incredibly comfortable, and you can fit, obviously a single pilot, which is nice. It's got two engines, which for us is essential. I've been in a plane where I've lost one engine on a flight, and I've had to do the emergency landing, and you know it's something to be said when that other one's still working and you can actually get to the ground instead of just gliding the rest of the way there.
Yeah, this is true.
Um,
This is true.
and so, the fact that it's got the 2 engines, it's incredibly efficient.
Yeah, it is.
It's instead of hundreds of gallons, we burn through tens of gallons on journeys,
Hmm.
which is, fuel is a hell of a volatile thing right now when it comes to
Yes, it
cost.
is.
And so, it was one we were looking for: easy, reliable, efficient, but then could have the capacity to carry, the folks that we needed to. And it was
Hmm.
something different. I mean, you can always get the Cessnas, but again, for a newer aircraft, this was kind of the cutting edge. It had the right technology in it. It was, our pilots were comfortable in it, which is another big thing. You look at some of these smaller planes and it's like they don't give consideration for the pilot. And so God forbid they have legs in any capacity. So it was just, it checked all the boxes, along with the fact that, as we see in smaller planes like this has de-icing.
It
So
does. Yeah.
so it has the ability to, obviously in our climate,
Oh, yeah.
where, ice is the biggest enemy of most, aircraft, especially up in our neck of the woods.
Sure.
It allows us to travel year round. Um, and it's just a dang good aircraft, man. And it's, everybody like you always say, like, well, I know the DA, because you're like, yeah, it's got that weird tail and it kind of has this swooping line, and it's,
Yeah, it
the
does.
wings go forever. I will tell
Yes.
you, I guess that's one other thing that, I've flown around in a lot of small planes. You get some of the ones that have got the really short wingspan, you
Hmm.
feel everything. There's something
So
about
true.
watching the wings kind of be able to take the bounce and kind of move its way out, where it just makes the flight so much more enjoyable. I mean, the King
Mm,
Airs, I've
that's a good
beaten the
point.
crap out of myself flying through the Appalachians, landing in upstate New York, landing in Pennsylvania, landing all over the place. And it's just, the DA is just a much more comfortable flight. And I have to attribute a lot of it to its wingspan because it's massive.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we're gonna hit a few more fun ones real quick before we wrap up
Yeah,
here
let's do
today.
it, dude.
All right, favorite airport? I think you mentioned this already. The one in Florida.
Yeah, I would say for personal, it's the one in Florida. I'd have to say the other one in, it's the business spot in, crap. It's just north of Indianapolis. Really
Okay.
nice airport. It's got a beautiful big canopy that's super loud, but when the weather sucks, it's nice to be able to get dropped off in that capacity. I
Sure.
will also say, on the business side of things, when we were talking about customer service, the airport in Kalamazoo. Um,
Okay.
they do like the greeting, just the acknowledgement, just the presence and awareness. They do a great job represent. So, um, yeah, so that's those
Awesome.
two.
Um, favorite restaurant at an airport that you've been to?
Did I told you I did business flying? I don't get a chance to eat anything. What are you talking about? It's this was from a long time ago, and you'll have to forgive me. It's one of those I don't remember, but I was flying and we were landing on top of kind of a mountainside in Pennsylvania, and they had this really cool overlook restaurant where you could just, you were up there with nobody else, and it was just,
Mm,
if anything, it was just a neat spot where I wish I would have had more times to go back. But thinking to myself, like, this is a cool spot, and they did it right. And you could tell it was one of those where I'm sure every guy, every old pilot in the area was like, "This is where I get coffee, and this is where I talk," and they make some killer, bacon eggs. So
yeah, I was oh gosh, now I can't remember. There was a friend of mine took me to an airport in Pennsylvania, and they had outdoor seating. It was a beautiful evening, and there was outdoor seating for the restaurant right on the edge of the ramp. And we just sat
yeah,
outside eating. We went and got our $100 hamburger, right? And we just flew there just because it was a cool place to eat, and we just sat on the ramp, and just plane after plane just kept coming in and out. They were super busy, and there was amazing aircraft that was coming and going that night, and we just sat there, ate our food, and just watched airplanes, and then jumped back in the plane and flew back to where we were.
see, I wish I would have taken the time, man, to really appreciate that in that capacity. Usually, if I'm doing it, it's like, all right, I got here just on time. I got to go. And then it's like, all right,
Right?
let's get the heck out of here so I can get home. So
Yeah.
I got to do that more enjoyment side of things. Darn it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Let's see. Anything on your aviation bucket list?
Anything on my aviation bucket list?
Like, is there any place you really want to fly to? Any aircraft that you want to take a ride in? Anything unique and special?
I haven't. I've been able to fly to kind of the eastern edges of the mountains out west. I would love to be able to actually take that journey in the jaunt where, especially in a private aviation where you can kind of travel through the mountainside and all that type of stuff. That is on my list. Um, but as going west is a hell of a journey because either the wind's
Oh yeah,
with
it
you
is.
or it's against you. And
Yes.
and so you kind of got to be intentional for what that journey looks like. And business hasn't given me the opportunity to do that. So it would be on a kind of a personal thing. But really being able to navigate the mountains out west would be something that
Yeah, I
I
bet.
would just love to experience via the air. So,
That's awesome.
because I've flown over the Badlands where it looks like you've seen the same mound of sand or any sort of thing for about 3 hours, and you
Yeah.
still really start to question all things when it comes to fuel capacity when it feels like you're not moving in a 60 knot, 70 knot, headwind.
Yes. Yeah, I bet. Well, Pete, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on. I hope you had some fun on here
I
as
appreciate
well.
it, man.
Yeah, and to all the listeners and people watching this, thanks for joining us. This was fun. We're gonna continue doing these things. And Pete, we may have to have you back on and talk more about some of the experiences and stuff because I think some of these we could go even deeper in. We went a little over time, but that's okay. This was a lot of fun.
I have some experiences, man, so I could tell you about a couple of my other aircraft I had over the years and the do's and the don'ts. So
Yeah, I bet. I bet. So fantastic. Thanks again, everybody, for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time on Turning Base.
Thanks for flying with us on Turning Base. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your team. Want more tips and tools for marketing your aviation business? Visit us at readymarketing.net. Until next time, keep your wings level, your message clear, and your altitude high.